Welcome back to another Crusty Cravings video. I'm Hannah, and today I'm going to be walking you through all of the beginner sourdough tools that I would recommend to get started on your sourdough journey. You don't need everything, and most of the time you can use what you have in your home kitchen, but there are some things that I wish that I had when I first started that I would recommend. So the first thing you need is obviously an active sourdough starter, or you need to make one. You can use a dehydrated packet to make one. You can make one from scratch just using flour and water. And you can also get one from a friend off of Facebook Marketplace, from somebody you know. You're gonna need a jar to keep it in, and you'll need flour and water to maintain it. You will need flour, water, salt, and sourdough starter to make your bread. But aside from those ingredients, what do you need to make sourdough bread? You can use a kitchen bowl, just something that you already have. This can be a metal, glass, or plastic bowl. You can use any material that you want to be able to bulk ferment your dough, mix your dough, and let it sit on the counter until shaping. I'm just using a metal stainless steel bowl. The other thing that I recommend, which I didn't do when I first started, is use a recipe in grams because it's going to be more accurate, consistent, repeatable. And in order to do that, you'll need a food scale. I have two different food scales that I recommend. This is a larger one for bulk baking, and it just has more surface area to be able to hold a bowl. However, you can buy really cheap ones on Amazon, TikTok Shop, Shein, Temu, so many different places, and these are less than $10. So I'd recommend just getting a cheap food scale. Next thing that I strongly recommend, which is something I did not have when I first started, is a food thermometer. This is going to save you a lot of headache and help you with bulk fermentation. You can get pretty cheap ones on Amazon for less than $15. I just have a ThermoPro. Every dough temperature needs to rise a different percentage during bulk fermentation for it to be fully proofed. And that is where this comes in. This is really the only way you're going to know for sure what your dough temperature is and how long it needs to bulk ferment and what percentage rise you should target. So I strongly recommend getting a food thermometer. The next thing that you'll need is something to proof your loaf in. And there's several different things that you can do. I get these really cheap food grade baskets off of Amazon. They are for batard loaves or oval loaves, and these are only $1.25 per basket. They come in bulk, so you have to buy 16 to 24, but they're very cheap. I've also gotten a lot of these food storage containers from Dollar Tree that are $1.25 each, and it's the perfect shape for about a 900 gram loaf. The only thing is you will need a cloth, a towel, a cheesecloth to be able to line it. If you don't, the banneton is not going to weck out moisture or allow that extra moisture to escape, and it's going to make your loaf flatter, paler, and it won't have as much oven spring. I use a cheesecloth to line it, and that's how I put my loaf in there. A lot of people also proof in their loaf pans. If you are planning on baking same day, I would recommend the loaf pan. You can proof directly in here, let it do its second rise, and then bake it. Some people will even stick it in the fridge in the loaf pan. I just think it retains too much moisture and doesn't have as great of an oven spring, so I don't necessarily recommend this option. There's also just really expensive bannetons. This one came in a beginner sourdough kit that is actually very reasonable. The entire kit is less than $30. But this would be a really good option. This wicks out moisture and allows your loaf to expand and proof exactly how I like it. I also think it has a better shape after baking. So I would recommend one of these like wooden banneton baskets. I think those are probably your best option. And then finally, you can use silicone. I don't recommend these because I do think that they retain too much moisture, and I don't ever feel like my loaves are as good of a shape, and they don't proof as well. But I do this for my mini loaves and mini silicone bannetons, and I just line them with a cheesecloth, and that is completely fine. You can usually get these pretty cheap on Amazon as well. The next tool I recommend is a bench scraper. This actually comes in the kit that I mentioned that's less than $30. I didn't think I needed this at the very beginning of my sourdough journey, but it is easier to cut your loaves with a bench scraper, and it's also easier to clean your counters, because once that dough dries, it's almost impossible to get off unless you have a sharp tool like this that can scrape the dough off. The next thing I recommend is getting a bread lawn with bread blades to score your loaves. You're going to get a really clean cut on your loaves, and it's going to do what you want it to do rather than a dull knife that can't really cut too deep into your loaf. We want about a 1/2 inch, and this is going to cut through the loaf a lot easier. This one is less than $10 on Amazon, and I recommend it. So finally, what else do you absolutely need when you first get started? You need something to bake your sourdough loaf in, and there are several options. I open bake, which I think is the hardest way to bake, because you have to generate enough steam to allow your bread to rise in the oven, and you have to create a steam source. People use rolled up towels with boiling water in a pan. Some people use lava rocks like me in a cast iron skillet with boiling water. Some people mist their loaves and mist the oven, or use ice cubes in the bottom of the oven, but you have to generate steam, and it's not as predictable. So I don't recommend that for beginners. What I recommend is anything bigger than a 5-quart Dutch oven. I got this one for a reasonable price on the TikTok shop. It was less than $35, and the brand is actually Gotham Steel. I'm not sponsored by them, but it's a very lightweight Dutch oven, easy to store, and it makes great loaves, traps steam exactly how you need it to, and it's reasonably priced. The next thing I'd recommend is a roasting pan. I believe this is a 14-inch roasting pan, and it's just big enough for a batard loaf, about an 850 to 900 gram loaf. And this will also trap steam in the same way. The only thing is sometimes the bottoms burn on your loaf in one of these, unless you put rice under your parchment paper or you put a sheet pan underneath it in the oven, because it is a very thin material and can easily burn your loaf at a high temperature. But that's an option. The last option is to do the double loaf pan method, where you take 2 pans and set them on top of each other, and this will generate enough steam to allow your bread to rise, and it will also protect it from sealing prematurely or browning prematurely. So similar to a Dutch oven, you would bake it in this for half the bake, and then you would take the top off and bake it the remaining time. I really like this method when I'm on vacation and I don't have an alternative option. I also like it because the sandwich shape is way easier to cut, and it's way easier for sandwiches. So those are the things that I recommend that you get just to start your sourdough journey. Really, it's just the thermometer, the bread lawn, the bench scraper, the scale, a bowl, something to put your bread in, and something to bake your bread in. That's really all you need to get started. And I will link everything down below that I talked about in this video, and I hope this helps. So if you like this content, please like and subscribe, share, comment, and tell me what else you want to see from me, what other content would be helpful. Thanks so much for watching.